You're listening to the Talkative Introvert Podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Today is a solo episode. I feel like I haven't done one in a while, but I guess I think it's been like 6 months since I've done the last one, which is the last episode of last season. But wanted to do a solo episode to say happy Podiversary. I think that's how you say it, right? Podiversary. The anniversary of the podcast. The Talkative Introvert Podcast officially started 3 years ago on May 28th, 2020. So when this episode comes out, I believe it'll be the 29th. So yesterday would have been the 3-year anniversary of this podcast, which is pretty crazy. Like, I didn't realize that 3 years has gone by. But anyways, if you're new to the podcast, hello, my name is Melissa. If you ever listen to other episodes, especially with friends and family, I'm also known as Mia. So not to get you confused, if you are Filipino, then you'll understand that not everyone goes by their actual name. Most people don't. So Mia is my nickname. But anyways, so 3 years, May 28th, right at the start of the pandemic. It's crazy. To be honest, I'm surprised I've been doing this for this long. Not gonna lie, I do tend to go through hobbies. I mentioned this to my sister-in-law. So if you know Leia, she's been in a couple of episodes before, but I do go through a lot of hobbies. And I think I've said this once to somebody. I don't remember who, but I told them once, I know about a lot of things, but I don't know a lot about any particular thing, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not like a professional or really good at any singular hobby that I have, but I have a ton of them. And this being one of them. You know, I've dabbled in all kinds of hobbies and crafts, and I'm just by no means an expert or even really good at them necessarily. Like, I learned how to do calligraphy and I know the basics, but I don't ever practice the other styles. So it's definitely not refined in any way. The cool thing about it though is that people are still super impressed that I can do calligraphy, but I don't think people realize how simple it actually is. Even if your handwriting sucks, like my handwriting actually like really sucks, but people just think I have good handwriting because I write in cursive, but that's because I was like forced to in private school. So I don't really know how. I mean, I know how, but I don't write well in whatever the other format is called. But anyways, if you know the basics, you can pretty much do calligraphy. Obviously not to minimize the work of some really amazing calligraphers. It does take hours and hours of practice and creativity to do the more intricate work, but like just the most basic form of calligraphy is actually fairly easy to do. All in all, like I just really like learning how to do things, but I've never, I don't want to say never, but after I've done them, I end up going on to my next fixation. So I try not to do that too much because it does get very, very costly to have so many different hobbies. So I'm glad at least this one has stuck and it doesn't cost as much as my other hobbies, I think. I don't know. But I'm just surprised that it lasted this long because I was for sure like thinking, especially at the beginning of this year, that this is it. I'm not going to do season 4. This is it. I'm not going to do it again. I haven't picked up the mic in a long time. I recorded that first episode, I think back in like November or December or something like that. And I didn't get it posted until May, but here we are. So happy 3-year anniversary. Sorry it took so long to finally publish an episode and start season 4. And like I was saying, like I almost didn't even publish that one. I literally recorded that episode so long ago and it sat in my computer and I thought about it almost every week. I was like, okay, this week I'm going to do it. This week I'm going to do it. No, really, this week I'm going to actually edit it. But I finally did. I finally sat down and actually did it. And I'm really glad I did because I do really like this hobby. This is probably my favorite out of all my hobbies because not only do I get to talk because I love talking so much, but I also get to talk to really cool people and people that I love, like my best friends and my family. And, well, if you listen to the first episode, like I want to do more with Bailey, especially like if we do end up leaving California, like I want to continue this and like have an archive of my conversations with people I really do care about and love. And, when I'm like 70 or 60 or something, I can look back at all the cringy things we said in our 20s and 30s. But anyways, life has been just really busy and a little challenging and most definitely stressful. So I actually went camping with some friends during Mother's Day weekend, and one of our friends asked like how the podcast was doing. And I was like, it's going. This new job is really hard. I'm going to be honest. So I got promoted to supervisor back in like December. Yeah, December. So I went from your worker bee analyst to a supervisor, and it is just so much more mentally draining for some reason. It's weird because I don't feel like I do any real work, if that makes sense. Like I don't really do much of the research and analysis work anymore. I don't put together any reports or produce or generate anything. Like I don't have my typical day-to-day task, and my day is mainly filled with like meetings and answering emails and being constantly pinged on Teams, a lot of decision making. And my ultimate least favorite thing ever is resolving conflict between people. Like conflict resolution amongst the staff has been dreadful. And I haven't even been in this role for that long. And it's already awful. Because I think so, a friend, I don't know if she wants me to say who it is, but she said something like, the higher up you go, the less work you do, but the more money you get. And that can come off as kind of like derogatory or like kind of mean, like the higher up you go, the less work you put in, but it's true to an extent. Yes, I do less work, but this job is so much more stressful than my last job or like my previous position, which is pretty, like I get why people when they go higher up, like make the big bucks, I guess. So I did mention this last season, but I did do a project management internship workshop or whatever you want to call it. And I was really surprised how people-centric it was. I thought I would learn more about like the different departments and what they do and more of like the procurement stuff and technical stuff and more contract stuff, more, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I guess more like information about how like the project is run and how IT organizations are run and all that stuff. And soft skills was a really big part of that internship. Like they did a lot of like communication styles, identifying people's like personality and work styles and all this stuff. And I was thinking like, why are we spending so much time on soft skills? Like I thought I was going to learn about other stuff, and like they talk about like emotional intelligence, and what else did they talk about? Like conflict resolution, vendor client, like what's it called? Vendor client management, relationships, your relationships with your colleagues and with the vendor and the end user. Like it's very kumbaya, like very like people centric and making sure everyone gets along. And I just was surprised because that's not what I thought it would be about. But now I'm like, I get it, man. Like, to be a good manager, you got to have really good people skills. And if you have that, you don't even really have to know the actual work portion of what you do. Like, that's what you have your staff for. They're the experts in their area. And if you have a good team, they'll provide you with all the things you need to know to make a good decision. So those people skills are just so much more important. Like, back to like what my friend was saying, the higher you go, the less work you do, but the more money you get. Sounds kind of bad, but this job is really hard. But I think it's hard because I want to be a good manager. Like, I care about my team and I want them to have a great work-life balance, and I want them to, not be overloaded, not like be burnt out. Like, I want to be a good manager. So I think, sure, we do less work, but I think it's more stressful and harder to manage people and be a good manager. Like, that's the key, good manager. Like, I think you could easily be an awful manager and not care and not do anything and just get by and just make your bucks. But being a good manager, that's stressful and that's hard. And, that's where the people skills come in. And now I get it. Like, I get why that whole internship, not the whole thing, obviously we learned about other stuff, but the main thing was like, people skills, good people skills, because you do end up talking to staff a lot. A lot is probably an understatement, honestly. I mean, I know I call myself the talkative introvert, but some of these conversations are just not fun to have. My first week as a supervisor, I already had to have the super uncomfortable conversation with someone about their behavior and how they interacted with another employee. That was week 1. I barely got through onboarding. Then I had to do that again with someone else, and the person started crying. I mean, thank God we're teleworking, because I just sat there with my headset on and all I can hear is them like sniffling and heaving, if that's the word, cry breathing. It was such an unusual experience because I couldn't see the person either. It's not mandatory to have our cameras on at work. So all I just hear is just them crying. And it was just so weird and awkward, and I didn't know what to say. And like, I could just only imagine if I was in the office, I'd be like awkwardly patting their back or something, or I don't even know. I just sat there in quiet and let them cry it out a little bit. And I don't know if it's like the INTJ in me, but I don't cry at work. And when someone gives me constructive criticism, I don't cry about it. I take it and think about like how I can avoid that in the future or make sure I do better. I don't really take it personally because it is professional work. Like, I wasn't criticizing them on their, I don't know how to explain it. But it was feedback on their quality of work and their performance and their behavior. So it's not really, I don't know. Maybe I'm just not sensitive enough or empathetic, but I don't understand the crying part, I guess. But whatever, to each their own. Everyone's got their own, temperament and what they can and can't handle. Oh, and another thing, I'm the youngest person on my team. And not only that, but I'm the youngest person in my organization, other than our student intern, which obviously, they're in college, like they're young people. And I'm pretty sure the student intern's only a few years younger than me. So some people are either as old or older than like my mom. And I'm literally the same age as some of these people's children. Like, can you imagine being the person on the other side? Not only am I a new manager, but I'm also the same age as their child, talking to them about their behavior and the quality of their performance. It's like that episode of Friends where Chandler gets a new job in advertisement and his boss is like way younger than him and like telling him what to do. I mean, I don't know what that's like from the older person's perspective, but I can imagine it's probably like how Chandler was feeling if you guys watch Friends. It's just weird, I guess. It's just weird being a manager. And I don't know, it's weird telling older people what to do or how they should do things, or, criticizing them on their work and their behavior. It's a bit odd for me. And I don't know. It's too early on, but I don't know how well they're taking that or if they appreciate it, or if they think like you haven't been in this game long enough to tell me what to do. But I've also learned in this professional world that it doesn't even matter how old you are. Like, people always talk about like millennials and Gen Z and how, they're immature and they don't know how to work. And it's like, I've met some pretty immature older people too. They are everywhere. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how long you've been in this like industry. There are immature people everywhere. And it's just kind of, I don't know. It just shocks me how apparent that is in the professional world. Like, there's just so much drama at work. It's like you can't escape high school in drama. I feel like there's just people who seek out for it and who just love it. Anyway, short story long, that's why the podcast didn't start when I was hoping for it to start. Sorry. I just feel like I just went on this whole rant about work. Because work, it's like, this podcast is a hobby, like I said, and it's hard to get things out and hard to think about it. Because you got to think about what to talk about too and all that stuff. But I'm really glad that I'm still doing it. And I've hunkered down, or not hunkered down. I sat down and got that first episode out, and now I'm recording this one. And it's a like celebratory episode 2 because it's been 3 years. We're in season 4, which is pretty crazy to me. And I'm just excited to do more. Like, I think it's one of those things where it's hard for me to sit down to finally like record an episode or to edit an episode. But once I do it, like, I remember how much fun it is and how much I love it and how much I love listening back to the conversation, especially like the ones I do with like friends and family. Like the first one I did with Bailey, I always laugh and I always like, have to pause because I'm just laughing so hard. And then I don't remember what we say next. So I'm glad to still be here. I'm glad to still have season 4. But man, was I super optimistic. I was like, I'm going to work on my website. I'm going to do a new intro and outro. I'm going to get at least 8 episodes recorded so that I have 2 months of content in advance. I have yet to do any of that. You guys will get new episodes when the time permits. The website will be updated eventually, sometime this year. I know we're like almost halfway through, but I will get to it eventually. Bailey keeps asking me to add that tab for podcasts that I've been on, but now I need to remember which ones those are because I don't actually remember. I think I've only been on like 4, so it's not that many, but that is something I want to add to my website so you guys can hear those too. And, and I'm promoting those, podcasts too and helping them out. And man, all I'm thinking about is good thing you guys don't pay me for this. My friend told me I should start a Patreon. First of all, my podcast is nowhere close to being big enough to have nearly enough patrons to make it even worth it. Second, I would just feel absolutely awful if I didn't produce content on a regular basis or provide patrons with something like merch or live Q&As or something, like I have to give you your money's worth. And I don't know if I can, or if I even have any good ideas to do that. Like, is anyone even going to be interested in merch or live Q&As or anything like that? Especially because I have such a small following. It would probably cost me more to make the merch than to actually sell it. So that's that's just too much pressure. At that point, I don't think this would be fun anymore, unless it was to quit my day job and I had all day to work on it like a regular job. But that is definitely not happening anytime soon. So if you want more content, make sure you share this out with people and spread the word. Maybe someday I'll get big enough and I can make this my full-time job. But as it stands right now, that is not happening. And I will just get the podcast out, like the episodes out when I can and when time permits and when Bailey has time to talk to me. Actually, Bailey's not the problem. I'm the problem. I'm always busy. For someone who's an introvert, I don't understand why my schedule is so booked. Anyways, just wanted to record a solo episode to celebrate the 3-year anniversary of the podcast. Even though this turned out to be more of a rant about work more than anything, I do want to say thank you for listening to the podcast, and for you OGs, I hope the podcast is getting better instead of worse. I hope you're still sticking around. I mean, if you lasted this long, then it must be interesting enough to stick around and listen. So I appreciate you and the support. Like I said, no promises for this season, but I hope to publish something every other week or at least once a month. Like I said, as time permits, I'll upload something. A friend of mine wants to be on the season 4 episode 20. So we'll see if I can actually make it to 20 episodes so he could be on it. But we will see. I will try my best because I do really like doing these things. So it'd be a shame to not be able to do it because it's a good release from work. Sometimes I just need to talk about work. Maybe that could be an episode, like I'll do an episode with Bailey or whoever on what's bothering you this week. I think that'd be a good one because I feel like people can relate, And I talked about that, I think, in the first episode, that there's like some podcasts where they'll talk about personal stuff or talk about work or talk about something and they'll be like, is this even interesting? This is probably too boring. We should change subjects. But to me, I'm like, no, it is interesting because it's like, man, I get it. Like it's totally relatable. Like I get where they're coming from. And it's like a breath of fresh air that you're not going through something alone, that someone out there also gets it and is going through the same thing. So hopefully this was interesting enough for you. And I hope you enjoyed that little work rant. And if you get it, man, if you're going through the same thing I'm going through, hang in there. I want to say it's going to get better, but I think it's a little too new for me right now to say that. But definitely hang in there. I'm there with you. Anyways, future of the episode, season 4 predictions. We'll see if it actually happens. But, I do want to update the website so I can add that tab with the podcast that I was a guest on. I'm trying to figure out what to name that tab. Guest appearance? We'll see. And I do hope to reconnect with some guests from last season and do more interviews with them as well. So stay tuned for that. I did get rid of my Podmatch profile because it does cost money and it doesn't let you go back to the free version. So I was going to see if I can contact somebody to put me back on the free one because I don't want to pay for it. I don't really use it, especially this season where I'm just super busy and I can't get through as many as I'd like to. It's kind of a waste of money, But I do want to reconnect with some of them that I really love talking to. So hopefully they'll go back on. But if there's any updates on the podcast, I'll announce it on Instagram. So make sure to follow me there. It's called the Talkative Introvert Podcast. It's literally the only social media page I have right now. I just don't do well with social media. I don't post typically. I have to force myself to post for the podcast and I always forget about it. But yeah, Instagram is the way to go for me if you want to be up to date on the podcast and all that stuff. And you can also chat with me or leave a comment on a post or DM me. Some people do that and I do my best to respond back. So definitely if you want to chat, go on there, or if you want to go on the podcast. I did have a couple of listeners last season go on the podcast. So I'm totally open to talking to whoever. Like I mentioned in the first episode, I'm just interested to know people of different backgrounds, different lifestyles, and if you have an interesting story that you want to tell, let me know. I'll get you on the podcast. And I feel like this is like a good intro podcast if you want to get into it, because I don't have a big listing, like a big following. And so you're not going to get all those like million comments, and you're not going to get all those people that are just trolls on the internet that are, there to bully you. So it's a good intro podcast if you want to test the waters, if you will. But yeah, so check out the Instagram page. You can contact me there. I do also have email if you're not like a social media kind of person. So you can either email me through the website at thetalkativeintrovertpodcast.com or email me at thetalkativeintrovertpodcast@gmail.com. So everything will be on my link tree in the show notes. So, anything I mentioned will be there, so you can go check that out. All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks so much for sticking around to season 4 or checking out the podcast if you're new here. Season 1 is a bit hard to listen to if you're new. I recorded that using my gaming headset, and also I was new to everything. So, and it's all like solo episodes. So if you like prefer those, then go check those out. Those are definitely more introvert related, whereas now it's just like whatever. Anyways, thanks so much for listening. Happy Podiversary again, and I will talk to you guys in the next episode.